Well, hi. Hold on. I just wanted to give an official hello from the two of us. Dan, say hi. Say hi. Hi. He's starting to stand up by himself, and it's pretty crazy. He also is getting used to seeing himself in videos, and he thinks it's pretty cool. Whoa! I had other things I wanted to say, but I always get weird when I get all these videos because I feel like there's stuff I need to say. I guess that's what I kind of wanted to talk about. I know I posted a video earlier of, he's waving, hey, hi, hi, of Kara Sai's testimony, and I just wanted to kind of talk about pressure and just like the pressure to be a good human being, and especially as Christians, like we have this pressure on us all the time to just be doing things the right way, or be thinking the right things or feeling the right things. And the more that I learn about grace, and the more that I learn about the Lord, and the more that I just allow Him to just like touch my heart and love me, the more I realize there isn't a right way or a example kind of way for me to be a human being other than to be the person that God created me to be. And I think a lot of times we super spiritualize things, and we say like, this over here is Christian and this over here is not. And if I'm supposed to be doing this and instead I'm doing this, then I'm failing God in some way. And God doesn't have an expectation that He puts on us. And that's been a big thing that I've been kind of learning about myself lately, and just especially in relationship, is that like when I have expectations for myself, I put those expectations on Will, and I put those expectations on everybody else, and it's just not, it's not what God has for my life. And a big part of what I've been learning is just like everything we do is spiritual because Jesus came. Like God became a man, and so there's not a separation between the spiritual and the world, so to say. There's the spirit of the world, which is just like the sin that we're all born into. But it's not like, as a Christian, that's something that you can like, I don't really know how to explain it, but it's not that there's worldly stuff in terms of just everyday stuff, like cleaning your house or taking care of your baby or just doing these things. Like those aren't less spiritual than reading the Bible. Obviously, there's things that don't come from the spirit and that come from the flesh, like drunkenness or pride or anger or all those things, but we've died to that stuff. And so that's not who we were truly created to be. And so if we recognize that and we realize what Christ did on the cross was take our flesh and take our human nature and nail it to the cross so that it doesn't exist anymore. And if we really accept that, it's one of the scariest things to accept, and it's taken me years because I've known it for a really long time, but I'd always get really confused, and a theology would come in, and because I wasn't grounded in the Lord and because I wasn't established in who He says I am, I would get totally freaked out. Like I would start to experience freedom, and then a theology would come in or a scripture would come in that I didn't understand, and it would totally derail me. And that's just like my own thing as a person, is I can be totally stable, and then something comes along and it totally derails me emotionally, mentally, and that's always just been my thing. But within the past year, and I'd say especially the past 6-ish months, since about October, I've been learning what it means to be established in grace and to be established in who the Lord created me to be, and just to really love that person and to realize it's okay to love myself. And practically in everyday life, just in relationships and stuff, I've been realizing certain things. Like today, Xander and I, it's almost 1 o'clock. Yeah, it's 12:30, and we're still in our pajamas because I need to stop putting pressure on myself to be a certain way, to have everything done. That is our corner of boxes from moving that isn't unpacked yet, and half of them are unpacked, but they're not like moved out. You know, like I had beans and rice for breakfast. Like I didn't really cook today or do anything that I should be doing, but it's like God's showing me what grace looks like, and He's showing me that living in Him and living out of His promise, like I think we get worried that if we aren't constantly keeping track of ourselves, we're going to go astray. But that's not our job. Like, it's the work of grace being worked out in us. And actually, that's something that I need to hear before I preach it, and it's something that I need to live before I preach it, because I find myself like telling Will this stuff all the time. Like, you don't have to do this yourself. It's totally God. And then the reason that I'm getting so upset with him about just small things is because I feel so much pressure on myself to do certain things, to be a certain way, to have a spiritual life when my whole life was created to be spiritual, because Christ tore down the veil. He tore down the dividing wall between God and man. And so now we're created in his image, and he's redeemed us so that everything that we do can glorify him. So I just have been thinking a lot about pressure and how we try to put pressure on ourselves because we think, well, if I don't do this, if I don't put pressure on myself, then I might go astray, or I might fall into sin, or I might this and this and that. But it's like, once you're established in who God says you are, that's not going to happen, because you're a new creation, and there's not going to be something in you that desires to go astray from him. Like, the very fact, like, if you're caught up in addiction and you feel guilty about this, I heard Todd White say this once, like, he was talking about pornography, and he said, when you get into a place where you're stuck watching porn, and you continue to just be down on yourself, and you're like, oh, why am I doing this again? He's like, the thing that would help you get free is recognizing you don't want to do it anymore. And then rejoicing in that and being like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this anymore. God's created a new person in me, whereas before I wouldn't have cared at all. And then every time you get that feeling, instead of giving into the guilt, which will just lead to more sin, you see what it is that God's done in your heart, and you say, wow, like, he's created me as a new human being, and I don't want to do that sin anymore. And so, like, that was a big thing for me back in, I'd say September, when I first started my job, and I was working as a preschool teacher, and there was so much stress. I was away from him 6:30 to 6:30 every day, taking the bus, and I had this period of time, like 2, maybe 3 weeks, where I started struggling with eating stuff again, and I didn't want to, and it was so hard because I was breaking down into tears every day being like, I've been healed from this. Like, I know how bad this gets, and I've been healed from it, and I'm starting to really recognize myself for who I am, so why is this still a struggle? And the more that I just focused on the fact that God had made me a new creation and that I didn't want to do it anymore, the more I glorified him in my freedom. I walked away from it, and there's not anything in me anymore that desires that. And it's funny because it's like all the guilt and all the shame and all the stuff that I thought would keep me from going back to my addiction actually just spurred it on further because it was born out of fear. And so now that I'm not afraid anymore, it's like, if I go a day where I'm like really, really busy and I don't have breakfast and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten all day, I don't freak out and think I'm relapsing. I just go, I'm busy, like, and I eat food and it's fine. But I think that there's just so many things, and I'm learning that that's actually how we take our thoughts captive, is allowing him to be the center of all that we do, and not trying to take our thoughts captive, and not trying so hard to be a good person or to think the right thoughts or to feel the right things. And this is something that I'm actually just kind of realizing today, because I actually had this long conversation with Will about it last night and was getting frustrated with him. Like, why aren't you taking your thoughts captive? Why aren't you doing this stuff? And he's like, well, you're making it sound like it's something that I need to do. And that bothered me, because I know, like, it's in grace. It's not something we can stir up of our own abilities. And so it is God doing it in me. And he does it by creating a desire in my heart to be closer to him. But it's not my own effort. And all I have to do, not have to do, but what I get to do is just put myself in his hands and say, Lord, like, you have this taken care of. It's okay. So that was a little longer than I intended it to be, but I just wanted to bless you guys and, like, take the pressure off. Like, you're a child of God, and you were created to be a child of God, and nothing saves but the blood of Jesus. Like, he covered all of it. It's all taken care of. You are good. You were created holy, and he made you, and he redeemed you, and he set you apart as his own. So I just wanted to bless you and say hey, and Xander just wanted to say hey, and we hope you have a good day. Okay, bye.